Totally.
I think welcome to Coach's Corner. I think we're in for another interesting discussion time together. We have Gene Wolverton committed to share this evening. Gene Wolverton's a good friend from many years ago. Has had a chance to coach basketball at a high level, coached in the ACAC, and along with all the other past coaches we've had, Gene Wolverton has a growth mindset. And a hero of mine. It's been great to connect with Gene over, I guess, the last 3 months here, a lot more since our time in college. So, Gene, great to have you on the call. We also have my younger brother, Paul Armbruster, another hero of mine, and Paul's going to be sharing with us as well. I believe he's got a commitment a little later in the call. So Paul's going to share first, and in that, really looking forward to listening and learning. Gene's going to be challenging us about the story that we're telling ourselves. The theme is the story you tell yourself is often the story you believe. Gene, really looking forward to learning from you there. And then Paul's going to be sharing with us about how well do we know ourselves and what things are we working daily to improve at, to whereas we are healthy as a coach, as we try our best to stay healthy as a coach, we can then help our players be as healthy as possible. So before we get going, my older brother, Dave Armbruster, is just going to say a short prayer, and Paul, the mic will be all yours.
All right, sounds good, John. Dear Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day you've given to us, a great evening. And Lord, just for the opportunity to gather this evening as coaches, as leaders, and just pray that you'd be with those who are sharing. And Lord, may we have an open heart and an open mind to learn. In your name, amen.
Thanks, Johnny. Commend you, bro, for your leadership in setting this up, and it's cool what you've been doing, and the example you are to me, bro. It's yeah, I wanted to share about personal health and how our personal health is needed for great leadership. And it's interesting, you know, Dave and John are my brothers, and they'll easily know that there's plenty that I can grow in and improve at in this area still. And yeah, I'm not coming at this as saying I'm an expert, but it is something that is relatable for me, in that as I look back on a couple of the past years in my coaching and my leading and my life just overall, I wasn't at my best. And that affected my leadership and affected my effectiveness. And so, yeah, I wanted to just share a little bit of some things that I've been thinking about, some things I've been working on, some things that I'm still needing to work on and grow in. But read in a book, and whoever the author was who said this quote, if you ever catch this Zoom call, I apologize I don't have your name on here, as I can't remember who you were. But somebody who said that the hardest person to lead is ourselves. And I've found that to be a great challenge in the last bit. And I think if we want to lead well, it's key that our cup is filled up. You know, we can't give or pour into others what we don't have. If we have a depleted cup or an empty cup, or not running at our best, that's going to translate into not being able to give to those we want to serve and pour into. And so I guess the first kind of question is how are we doing? And I remember taking a class once and looking at life as kind of, you know, we have several gauges in our life. The physical, the relational, the mental, the emotional, our work, and the spiritual. And looking at these as kind of like fuel tanks, being able to evaluate where are we at, how full are these tanks? And obviously if our tanks are low, that's going to be a negative effect on us. But asking the question of where are we at, how filled up are we in all of these different areas? Are we self-aware enough to know ourselves and how we are doing? Are there people close enough to us to be able to tell us the honest truth of how we're doing? Do I go out of my way to ask for feedback to those around me, whether that be above, beside, or below, in asking the question, how are we doing? Reflection obviously is a big piece. This is an area that I want to continue to improve at and grow in. But do we take time to reflect and ask the questions of how am I doing? And also just the comment that burnout can happen to great people. Sometimes I think in my life, I've thought, burnout doesn't happen to great people, but no, it does. Burnout can happen to great leaders. And we might not be facing burnout, or you might not be facing burnout, but still the question of, are we operating at our best? As John mentioned, I'm actually doing a little Zoom call with a team that I coached 13 years ago. And I look back on that time, and that was a time where I felt like, hey, that was a season where I was operating quite close to very efficient. But asking ourselves that question, when was a time that I operated, very well? What were the reasons for that? Is also a good teaching tool. So Gene's actually the leadership coach for the team that I coach, and Gino, there's some stuff I stole from you already on some coming up slides here, so I'm not stealing from your presentation later, bud, but you guys are going to enjoy hearing from Gene. As John said, he's a good friend, and got a lot of respect for the insight he has. But something of a question of, how well do we know ourselves? The good book says, the purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. And asking, myself the question, do I know what fills up my cup? What are activities that are going to energize and refresh and revitalize me? Do I know what drains my cup, and am I working to stop them? I remember Johnny sending something out a few weeks ago to this line. What are things that are hindering us, and are we stopping them? And that's not easy to do. Gene was sharing with our team the other day that the hardest thing isn't learning something, it's unlearning a negative habit. And that is a challenging question. Do we know what our passions are, our goals, our mission? Do we know our strengths and weaknesses? Do we know the gifts and also the needs of our own personality? Do we know what fills us up and what can drain us? I was reading a book, and it asked these questions about self-leadership of, do I know my mission and vision? Is my passion hot? Am I developing my gifts? Is my character submitted to Christ? Is my pride subdued? Am I overcoming my fears? Are interior issues, weaknesses undermining my leadership? Is my pace sustainable? Is my love for God and people increasing? And I understand that not everybody would maybe believe in God, and yet I think even taking the spiritual aspect out, these questions are still effective and good questions of asking. And as a coach too, of where's my identity rooted? One of the challenging scenarios for myself was experiencing losing, and realizing that my identity was much too rooted in the win-loss record. But I think that's an important question for us, is where is our identity resting, and how much is it tied to our success? So health, something that's been really just on the forefront of my mind is the importance of habits. I actually got this quote from Gene that he sent out to our team the other day, but thought it was fantastic, of outcome is a lagging indicator of what your habits and choices have been. And so asking the question of, how is our health and habits in these gauges, in these major areas of life? How are we eating? How are we sleeping? How is our exercise? Excuse me. within the physical aspects, in the the realm of our emotions. Are we aware of our emotions? Do we have the ability to listen to our emotions, but also do we have the ability to control our emotions? In the social and relational, I believe that we're created relational and need community to varying levels. Different people have different needs, but are those needs being met? I think amazing things can come out of community, and are we engaged in healthy relationships? People that can support us, encourage us, challenge us. I put in here too, we all need some support and encouragement. I can remember chatting with a mentor of mine once, and it was just around a situation of, having gotten kind of some nice feedback from some athletes or students. I can't remember what the exact situation was, but we were discussing like, hey, is that just pride, like, wanting to keep this this note that makes me feel good? And his response was, he said, I keep a file where I have some notes of encouragement and support, so in some tough times I can go to that. And yeah, I think we all need some people in our corner, and we need support and encouragement. On the mental side, is my self-talk filled with truth and lies? Truth or lies? What is the view of myself? Is my confidence healthy? Within my work, how's my productivity? Am I in a good fit for the gifts that I have? What's the sustainability of my work-life balance, just etc.? What's the sustainability of work? Something that I want to get better at or improve at, and it's on my list in the summer projects, but having a couple year plan. But the question of, do we have a daily, weekly, yearly plan, routine, or schedule that will sustain our personal health? And again, do we have restorative things planned into that routine? Another area that's a good challenge for myself of, am I willing to say no so that my yes is more effective? Sometimes we can get caught doing too much, and that can bring us down. Which leads me kind of to the question of, how is our heart doing? And I know there's varying thoughts and beliefs out there about spiritual. Personally, I believe in Jesus, but I think the spiritual still, that aspect brings up some really important questions of what is my purpose? Where does my hope come from? What is the meaning of this life? Where does my significance come from? And the reason why I bring that up as a separate slide is I think that these things really affect our passion and motivation levels. And what a significant aspect to trying to be a great leader. Excuse me. When our passion is running high, that I would venture to say is when we are leading well. And so that's why I think these questions are important. Yeah. And then potentially a seventh gauge. Am I growing? Am I learning? Am I improving? What am I feeding? And as what I will feed will grow. It's like our training. Muscle is either going to grow or shrink. And I think this is an important aspect to our overall health, is to be in a growth mindset and trying to develop and learn. Also, the value of having a mentor is, I think, an important aspect to growing. Something that I was thinking a little bit about as well in looking back on the last couple of years of my life, and while I was in it, I would have known, or I did know, okay, hey, I'm not at my best. And I just bring up that, like perseverance, work ethic, a can-do attitude, not complaining, positivity. These are all valuable traits and things that we often find in leadership and fully supportive of these traits. But sometimes I think they can maybe hold us back from asking for help. Pride is not a great trait in the sense that would I admit that I have things that need to change and improve my life in areas of my life? Obviously, you know, I don't like failing or admitting failing. And something that as I look back on the last couple of years, I was really looking at some of the disappointments in my life as failure, instead of looking at it as, hey, this is something I can grow from. This is something I can learn. This is an opportunity to take a weakness and improve at it. What a gift. But my personal perspective was way off in the sense I was just looking at the result. And you know, there was a part of pride in that too. And you know, I definitely could have asked for help more. And are we willing to be vulnerable? Do we have friendships in our life that a support group that we can go to? And are we willing to go to others to ask for help? And it's not easy. By no means am I saying I've been 100% great at that, but how can we, moving forward, give ourselves the grace to say, you know what, none of us are perfect, and there's nothing wrong with asking others for help. And again, my brothers will be able to know that's something I can continue to work at. But just amongst this point of, are we willing to ask others for help? You know, leadership is mainly about giving to, serving, helping others. But if we want to be effective and great leaders, we have to be willing to ask for help from others to be the best that we can be. There's a guy in the States, Craig Conchal, who's got a quote that says, "Everyone wins when the leader wins." And so that's kind of from where I've been coming at in this talk of the more that we can have our personal health running at or close to a full tank, everyone around us is going to benefit from that. We're going to personally benefit from that. And yeah, everybody wins in that scenario. And so, yeah, it's just something that's been on my heart and mind lately of focusing on how can I lead myself better. And yeah, I think that's going to translate to even better things in my own life personally. So thanks, Johnny, for the chance to share a little bit, bro. And
yeah, I really appreciate it, Paul. I really appreciate it, and look forward to watching this again and maybe hitting rewind a couple times where, let's call a spade a spade. Being vulnerable is not easy. But I think as we break down the DNA of championship teams, they were extremely close, and they depended on each other. They were open with each other, and they would do anything for each other. And that was the driving force a lot of times of how these teams were able to push through the adversity to succeed. And yeah, we've got situations where you have very close teams and they're working for each other, and you don't always get the W. Look forward to hearing Terry share in the future on Coach's Corner. He's been a part of some very successful teams, but if I recall, I think, Terry, you took your team to the big dance this year, didn't you? And the other guys, the scoreboard maybe didn't go quite the way you wanted it.
Yeah, fair comment, John. No, it didn't. But at the same time, that team that we faced off in the finals was a powerhouse all year. So they only lost once, and thankfully we were the ones that beat them. Yeah. Wasn't in the final game, though.
Yeah. And you know, Paul, to your point of how we are as leaders, we got lots of flaws, and we're going to continue to stub our toes, but having that support group around us and knowing that you're right, as the coach goes, the team goes. And what are things, you know, that we're putting in place, you know, before the season even starts? How are we evaluating things throughout the season? And again, thanks, Paul, for what you shared. Looking forward to reevaluating and watching again. Next up is Gene Wolverton. Gene is very passionate about basketball, but as I've thought about sport, I think we can learn from other sports. You know, in the past, we've had a few hockey players on this Coach's Corner. Paul, your background's been, volleyball with playing pro overseas and playing at a university level, coaching college. I think we can learn so much from different sports. Gene, I want to be quiet. Looking forward to listening to you. The mic's all yours.
Right. Thanks, John. Well, I'm excited to be here. I'm passionate about coaching, and I appreciate John and Paul and friendship that I have with you guys, and conversations, lots of great conversations, and looking forward to some future conversations. And, tonight I'm not going to be talking about anything new, something that's really common to all of us, and really preaching to myself. And I feel like the best things to learn are things that you're sharing or things that you're learning. And so something I've been working on for quite a few years. And so the goal tonight is just to help us think a little bit more about how we think about things. So, but I really believe that, and that comes with the tagline, the story we tell ourselves is a story that we believe. And I just want to share a few stories here just to start off with, just to illustrate that, and then go into some practical things at the end. I like fishing. I don't know if anybody else like fishing here. I love fishing. Garden Lake. I'm up here in Salmon Arm, BC, most beautiful place in the world. And we got a little lake called Garden Lake around here. And my brother-in-law, he knows the camp director at Garden Lake Bible Camp, so we managed to snag canoe. And so we were going out in the canoe, and he's like, "Oh yeah, grab a canoe." So grabbed one and started putting it in the water, and I was like, "Ooh, this one's a little tippy." And I was like, it's not a big. I grew up going on canoes all the time, no big deal. So then my brother-in-law, he's coming in behind, he's gonna push us off, and he goes, "Whoa!" It's like, "This canoe is a little tippy." And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, it's fine, it's fine." So we were off and we're fishing in the lake, and it's going really awesome. But right around that area, there can be some big wind gusts that bring in some storms pretty quick. And so all of a sudden we saw this storm coming in, and we're like, "Oh crap, we got to get off the lake here because it's gonna be pretty windy." So we both go to put our paddles in at the same time from fishing, and we both lean the same way, and in we went into the lake, and it was freezing. My cell phone, everything was messed up. But the story we told ourselves was fine, when actually it wasn't. It was pretty tippy canoe. And it just goes on. There's more stories going on to some coaching. A friend of mine works with the UCLA women's basketball program, and they had one of their best players. Her name was Tony. She's one of their best players on the team. Could shoot the lights out. But the problem with Tony was that on defense, she was quiet as a church mouse. And everyone knows at that level, at any level, if you're playing highly competitive sport, you need to communicate. And this is becoming an ongoing problem. And the coach was just perplexed, thinking, how do we get this girl to communicate? She just won't talk, but we need her on the court because she's averaging 21 points a game. So they were deliberating, and my friend came up beside her, and he said, "Hey, Tony, what are you taking in school?" And she said, "Well, I want to be a lawyer." And he said, "Man, that's awesome. What do you want to do with that?" And she said, "Well, I grew up in a really poor neighborhood, and I saw a lot of injustice happen in my community. And I really want to represent those people who can't really speak for themselves." And, Joshua asked her, he said, "Hey, do you think that having a loud voice would impact your position? Would you be able to help more people if you had a louder voice?" And she said, "Well, but it's just not in my personality." And he said, "Well, but it's clearly in your personality to want to help people, to want to stick up and stand up for these people and be strong for them and be a support for these people." And she said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Do you think that you could use sport to develop that voice?" And she turned and looked at Joshua, and she said, "I never thought of that before. Never thought of it that way." And from that point on, they never had a problem getting Tony to communicate on the court. The story that we tell ourselves is a story that we believe. And for Tony, she believed that it wasn't part of her personality to be loud, to communicate loudly, articulately, to voice what she was saying. And, just a couple questions from Joshua changed her whole perspective. And I think as coaches, that's some of the most powerful opportunities that we have when we're coaching players, we're coaching our teams is these questions, and to realize that for all of us, we all have stories that we're telling ourselves. And it even goes down to a physical level. I've been doing more research on this as I've been doing more writing. And one of the, I stumbled upon Dr. Crum's work. So she's a professor at Stanford, and she was at Yale. She did a study at Yale. And what they did was they paid people $75 to feed them milkshakes. And so what the only caveat was that they had to get their blood work done while they were getting the milk, while they were eating the milkshakes. And so they had this one milkshake, and it was called the Sensi Shake, and it was 140 calories, a light shake, and that they could get. And so it had 0 fat, zero sugar, it was just like the lightest shake you could possibly have. And what they were measuring in the blood work was the ghrelin. So the ghrelin is what's known as your hunger hormone. And so the more food that you eat, the lower this hormone goes. And so with the Sensi Shake, went down, but obviously it's not going to go down that much because it's not really going to satisfy that hungry hormone. So a few weeks later, they got the same group to come back, and they gave them the indulgent shake, 620 calories, 50 grams of sugar, just the full meal deal, tasted just delicious, 620 calories. And when they did the blood work, the ghrelin of the hunger hormone was more greatly satisfied. So same people, 2 different shakes, and very clear results. The interesting part about the study was that they actually gave the people the same shake both times. It was a 380 calorie shake, and it had exactly right in the middle. And so these people believed, based on what they were getting, it actually changed their physical bodies. It actually changed that. And the blood work proved that. And, once I saw this study, I was like, this is unreal. And I went on and I just found endless and endless amounts of information that supported this as well. And so for me, that's just made it even more so that the story we tell ourselves is really often what we believe. And that this is hugely impactful. And I know, we don't, John said I only have 12 to 14 minutes, so I'm going to keep it tight.
Keep going, brother.
this topic is huge, and I just don't hear very many people talking about it. And so for me, it's something that I stumbled upon in my own life. I've had endured hardship in my own life, and it wasn't until some people in my own life, just like Paul was mentioning, I had mentors in my own life challenge me on the way I was thinking and the story that I was telling myself. Stories are powerful. We remember stories. And, even when you talk to kids, the easiest way to teach kids stuff is by telling them stories. It's because it's easy to remember. And, it doesn't change. As we get older, what do we want to do? We love hearing stories. Why do we like the movies? We love the stories. And so, what I want to do is bring it back to coaching. How does this help us in coaching? Well, oftentimes, the stories we tell ourselves about winning, or the stories we tell ourselves about losing, we've changed success. We've changed winning and losing from being outcomes to being identities. And so people are, I'm a winner or I'm a loser. And we especially find this in the younger athletes today, where they are so quick to attach identities to themselves. And, when we do that, those can either strengthen us or hinder us. And as a coach, I think we have the tremendous opportunity and responsibility, as we see these young people, as we see the people in our care, learning and growing, to really help them become the best that they can become. And that's really the direction that we're, I think for each coach, would like to have them go. Now, again, for us as coaches, if our story that we're telling ourselves is going to predict our actions. And so, what's one of the most common stories that we tell ourselves? I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time for that. Hey, I don't have time. And, when our players tell us that, we're like, well, you better make time, But when we say that, it's a whole different ballgame. And I just think, for a lot of coaches, one of the biggest challenges that they have is time. Let's look at one aspect of health. Paul I loved your conversation, Paul, about health, and those are some awesome questions. And there's the quote, like, with health, I don't have time. I don't have time to work out during the season. I don't have time to eat healthy. I'm on the run all the time. Hey, I'm recruiting. I'm out on the road. I don't have time. There's a quote. Either you're going to take the time, or time will be taken from you. Either you're going to take the time, or time will be taken from you. And for us as coaches, you put first things first. The second will not. The second is not suppressed, but rather it's increased. So for us, if we're not healthy physically, like Paul, and spiritually, mentally, and all these things that Paul's talking about, we're not going to be able to give 100%. And the physical part is especially important. And I've seen a lot of coaches where, man, phenomenal coaches, but their careers cut short or whatever because of health issues, bad hips, bad back, bad knees, all the sitting that us as coaches do. I've been around a lot of coaches, and it's bad backs, bad hips, bad knees. And man, I'm at the physio actually right now during these last few days because I got a hip problem. So I'm like, I got to fix that. And because I know that in order for me to be at my best, I got to be healthy. And, also too, nutrition, being able to make wise choices when we're on the road, and so that it doesn't accumulate. And that's one of the hardest things about the story that we tell ourselves. At the beginning, hey, might not be a big deal. But over time, those habits and those beliefs start to manifest themselves in ways. Hey, now I'm carrying an extra 30 pounds. Now my back's starting to hurt. My hips, my knees are starting to hurt. That old injury when, I got hit in the boards back in the day, man, it's coming back now. And it's because I'm carrying too much weight. Right? So now I can't sit down. Now I'm uncomfortable, can't focus. There's so many different aspects. And so again, either we take the time for our health, or that time is going to be taken from us. And it's super important. And that, we can go deeper on that. The other is that we hear is the scoreboard. Scoreboard tells a story we often hear. The scoreboard only tells us where we are now. The scoreboard doesn't tell us where we're going. If the scoreboard told us where we were going, then how many teams would need to quit after the first month? And how many stories have we heard where the team was struggling in the first portion of the year, only to make huge strides moving forwards? How many times have we seen, heard the stories of these CEOs that have taken over seemingly companies that are going down the tubes, only for 2 or 3 years later to see them rise to the top? And over, there's books written about all these incredible stories where people left them out to dry and where they came back. And so what are we going to believe about the scoreboard? When we look at the scoreboard as a coach, are we seeing an opportunity to learn and grow? Are we seeing an opportunity to teach? Are we seeing teachable moments? Are we seeing the future of where we're going? Or are we seeing here and now? Are we looking for the nearest garbage can to kick? Are we looking for the water bottle to throw? Are we looking for the kid that's our whipping boy and we want to yell at? What's the story that we're telling ourselves when we look at that scoreboard? And so often, I worked with a coach who, he was excited about the year, brand new year. And we started off the year, lost the first game by 40 points, lost the second game by 40 points, lost the next game by 20 points, fourth game by 50 points, second game by 20 points. Like, we were just getting annihilated. And by the third game, the coach had an absolute fit on the bus, like just a raging fit. The thing was that we were a university basketball team. He had 10 freshmen and 2 second years and 1 third-year player. And he was having an absolute fit on the bus because we were playing all these teams that had 24-year-olds, 23-year-olds, all these old. And all he was doing was looking at the scoreboard every single game. And guys, this was only preseason. We hadn't even got to the season yet. And he was having an absolute fit. And the story that he was telling himself was the story that he believed. And he wanted desperately to develop and train these young men in word, but in action, you know, what comes out of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so what's really truly inside of us is what eventually will come out, especially in the hard times. And so if our heart is really truly into development, we're going to look at the scoreboard differently. We're going to look at games differently. We're going to coach differently. And I have a couple ideas. I don't want to go too long. I mean, I can this is a topic that's really deep, really dense, and there's a lot of layers to it. And obviously, because we're all in it together, nobody's immune to this. And you know, for me, it's it's just constant. It's every day. But there's a couple practical things. So let's jump into those. First one is the 5 feels of your heart. So we have 5: what we read, what we watch, what we listen to, who we spend our time with, and how we talk to ourselves. These are so what impacts the stories that we tell ourselves? Well, these are 5 ways that often the story is impacted. So what you read, the books you're reading, the news you're reading, the clippings that you're reading, the notes that you're reading, these are the things. This is one of the practical ways. The second is what you are watching. So the different things that you're watching is hugely impactful. So vision trumps all the senses. Research shows that. And so even when you read, when we read, the reason why we get tired of reading is that our brains get tired of assimilating all the pictures. So our brains actually, when we read, the brain sees each letter as a picture. And so as the brain groups these letters together, it forms a word. And so over time, it's really taxing on our brain. And so we actually learn better through vision. And so watching and the things that we watch is really how we learn. And that's why you hear of Tiger Woods, where he was, as a baby, his dad would bring him in and let him see him swing the golf club. And that's actually a scientific fact, that watching and observing is part of learning. And there's multiple, I'm not going to get into it, but there's a lot of research to support that. And then listening. So the things that we listen to greatly impact that. You know, it's really interesting. I was watching a study that was done on blind people, and they were asking these blind people, these people that were blind, they're asking them all these different questions. And some of them were really difficult questions, which, you know, things maybe you'd want to ask a blind person, but you'd feel would be rude or disrespectful. And they were asking them, and one of the things they said, well, what are blind people afraid of? And well, they said fear of heights. Well, they said, well, how can a blind person be afraid of heights? And they said, well, it's the way people describe it. It sounds scary. It sounds scary to us, you know. And you know, any aspect of falling is something that a blind person fears regularly. They don't want to fall. Well, heights, even though they can't see how high they are, it sounds scary to them, and so they develop a fear. Another one that was really surprising to me was clowns. Many blind people are afraid of clowns. And it's like, well, they've never even seen what a clown looks like. But it's a societal norm that there is a fear of clowns. And so when they hear it and they say, well, that sounds scary. And you know, when you think of it, we have that same thing too. You know, because I was kind of surprised and thought, well, how could they be afraid of clowns? But when you think of things that happen in other countries, and you think like, wow, that would be scary, but I've never experienced it myself. And so we also would assimilate a fear, even though we've never experienced it ourselves, or even though we've never seen it, because we start in our brains and we start to tell ourselves a story of what that fear would be like, what would happen to us. And so then the next one is who we spend time with. So who we spend time with is greatly impactful. We see this in youth sports all the time. And you know, one of the things that I love in Carol Dweck's book that she talks about in the book Mindset is she talks about how when we, or for kids, one of the things that, and we see this all the time, is that they define success as being effortless. If you have to work at something, then you're a loser. If you don't have to work at it and it comes naturally, well, then you're a winner. And this is the exact opposite of what's actually true. And no wonder when we're, you know, those of us that have to recruit or have experienced recruiting, why we have this battle of, man, this guy has a lot, or this girl has a lot of talent, But to get them to work hard, man, what's the deal? Well, they've somewhere along the line, they've started to believe that story. The story that, hey, if I have to work hard at this, then I'm a loser. And they've also defined what a loser is. And so there, I mean, the layers of that conversation just go really thick. And so then lastly, how we talk. And this one is very impactful. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I get a lot of thoughts in my head. I get a lot of voices that speak. And, you know, a lot of the voices come from these different sources, from what I read, from what I watch, from what I listen to. I mean, you know, when COVID first started, what was everybody doing? Everybody was watching the news, learning about COVID. What was it like? And it was just changing all the time. Well, what I was realizing was that, hey, you know, being mindful of what I was reading, I was like, man, I'm thinking about this way too much. Yes, I need to be aware, I need to learn, but it was starting to create fear. It was starting to create anxiety. It was starting to create this fear of uncertainty. And I thought, you know what? I don't need this in my life. What I'm reading, what I'm watching is not making me more healthy, is not making me more hopeful, is not making me happier, it's not making me more joyful. So why am I filling my head with it? And so I didn't completely abandon it, but what I did was I took a very strict diet of whether it be social media, news, and whatnot, so that my brain can continue to stay healthy and focus on things that are important, that are helpful to me, my family, my friends, and those that I'm spending time with, because I know that whoever spends time with me, I want it to be impactful, including tonight. I want to make sure that I take the responsibility to make sure that what I have to say and that your time here, that you're going to learn something, it's going to be impactful. So the things that we tell ourselves are equally important. And so how do we filter through what we tell ourselves? Well, you know, we need to be able to come back to what are some truths? You know, what are some things that we can come back to that are truths in our lives? And I know that one thing, you know, for me, you know, one of the primary things that I read is my Bible. And so when I read that, and I believe that the truth is in there, and that's where I come back to. And I think that for all of us, it's what you tell yourself is what you're going to what you're going to believe. And oftentimes we see this in, I call it a mistake response in coaching. So what is our mistake response? You know, guy misses a shot, you know, player misses the net, drops the head, you know, or body language turns negative. You know, what is our mistake response? So and immediately an opportunity. So any coach, this is the first place. If you want to start working with a kid on changing their story that they're telling themselves, it's in this moment, in the mistake response. And so instead of it being a reaction, it's like, hey, I've learned how to respond to this. So I missed the shot. Hey, that was a great pass. What a great pass by John. He made a great pass to me, and I just need to get that a little higher on the glass next time. Hey, that was a great pass. My footwork, my positioning wasn't quite right. Hey, maybe I'm even going to the bench and asking the coach, hey, coach, what did you see on that play there? I thought I was in good position. You know, and that, you know, so, but also that leads me to kind of another layer, which I won't go into, but just mention for time's sake, is just, are we willing to hear the truth? And I think that's a really incredible, can we improve? Can we truly improve if we're not willing to hear the truth? And that goes for us as individuals, and that goes for our players. You know, one of the things that I challenged Paul's team, who I'm working with Paul's team, is in training camp. I call it the scouting report meeting. So when I played basketball, we went down to the States a lot. And, you know, they do things a lot differently than us. And they taken things very seriously. And this was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so we were still a little bit behind in just kind of how we prepared for games. And so, but we always knew they had a scouting report on us. They knew everything about us somehow. They had their coaches on us like glue. And so what would be cool though is we'd usually get the classroom. They'd get their nice dressing room. We'd get the classroom for our change room. So then afterwards, they had let us into the change room to shower and stuff. So when we go in there, there'd be these papers on the floor, and you pick them up, and guess what it is? It's our scouting report. Oh, well, let's see. Hey, see what they said about John Armbruster. Oh, John Armbruster, he's got some nice hair, but a little weak in the jump shot there. And so we'd haggle each other because it was like not kind. It was not nice. It was, we're going to kill you guys. We're going to beat you. And this is the way we made the scouting report. And so the challenge for me was like, hey, I want to see what they say about me, because I wanted to improve, because this is where I would actually get the real deal. These are things my coach wouldn't even tell me. And so for me, it was an incredible growth opportunity. And so I challenged Paul's team, and I said, what if as a team, you guys were willing to go that deep with each other, where you were able and be willing to say, hey, where am I actually? What kind of swing do I actually have? What kind of communication do I actually provide to the team? Am I the little church mouse, or am I too loud? Am I overpowering? That's not good either. Am I a team player? And man, what a crucial conversation to have. And when a conversation like that create incredible chemistry, I just think a conversation like that would create some incredible chemistry. But the story we tell ourselves is often the story that we believe. And, the 5 fuels of your heart are 5 ways that our hearts, our minds are impacted, and that's the input. So the input that we get in, those are a few of the sources. I'd be naive to say that there isn't another one, and I'm always looking and searching for another way that wouldn't be included in one of those 5. But I think that's a good starting point for any of us, myself included, as to how that can impact us. Now, one of the things that I love about it is, if you're working with younger athletes, is you don't have to tell them what to watch and what not to watch. You just ask the questions. And that's the beauty of the conversation, is all you have to do is ask them questions. So, hey, but coach, I love music. I love music with a good beat. Hey, so do I. I love music with a good beat. Let's take a look at the lyrics that you're listening to. Are those lyrics helping you get to where you want to get to? Are those lyrics building you up or putting you down? Are those lyrics making you wish for something you don't have? Or are those lyrics encouraging you to keep on going in the direction that you're going? And that's where, so I took the liberty to look up the lyrics of the top 500 songs right now. And the lyrics, I'm like, man, if you listen to these lyrics every day, all day, you're not going to, are you going to become better as a person? And I guarantee any kid would say no, because they are not lyrics that are going to help you become a better person. Sure, it's like drinking a can of Coke. Tastes good on the way down, but it ain't helping you in the future, right? And so I think like this is the awesome part about, if you ever are struggling to talk to young people or any athletes or any person really, you can just ask them the question, hey, what are you watching? Somebody that's really struggling with depression or anxiety, or somebody that's struggling with these things, you can ask them a question. Recently I watched a report on depression and is it a chemical imbalance? And everyone can agree that there's a component of chemical imbalance. But overwhelmingly, the research shows that it's more of the societal stories and narratives and the culture norms that actually impact depression more than anything else. And those impacts actually are a tribute to the chemical imbalance rather than the other way around. And so one of the things is that people that, one of the ways you can really help yourself if you're experiencing those things is by monitoring what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're listening to, who you're spending time with, and how you're talking to yourself. You can significantly reduce what your experience is with those depression or anxiety with that. It's not a cure-all, but if you know somebody that's struggling with it, you can definitely talk them through that. The last thing I just want to mention, it's something that it's a coaching technique that I think that can really help. Again, it's part of this, it's a practical thing that you can do, practical thing that you can implement. So 5 views of heart, and this one's called reversion to the mean. Understanding what reversion to the mean is. And so oftentimes with development, we want it to be a hockey stick straight line. That's how we want development to look, like a hockey stick, right? But that's not how development works. And especially at the beginning, our feelings are the thing that start to impact our story, because what we think should be working is now not working. Disappointment is the result of unmet expectations. So oftentimes we experience disappointment because we have some expectations that aren't being met. Well, I want to challenge us to change the goalposts. And the story that oftentimes when I say that, what's the first thing that people think? Lower the standards. Change the goalposts, that means we're going to lower the standards. Actually, I would actually propose that we're going to increase the standards, and we're going to say that we're going to actually stick closer to saying, hey, we're going to focus more on development and less on the goal, less on the prize, because we know that if we put first things first, the second will not be suppressed, but rather it'll be increased. So first things first, it's right now, right here in this practice. We need this, we need to get better today. And so reversion to the mean basically shows that statistically, and you can use this in your statistics, and I've done this in multiple studies already, where you can show how the team's improving. So if the team's improving, it's over the yearly plan, it's going to look, it could look like a hockey stick, or it's going to look like this. But in a more weekly and gamely approach, it's going to look more like this. So for example, say, you know, you have a hockey team and you guys come in and you win, you come out and you win 1-0 the first game. Then the next game you lose 0-3. Then the next game you lose 2-4. Then the next game you win 4-1. Now the coach is like, hey guys, now, hey, that's the way we play. I knew you guys could play like that. That's the way we play. Next game we lose 0-5. Now the coach is looking for the nearest garbage can again to kick and the water bottle to throw. Where's that darn water bottle I can throw, right? And he's like, what's going on? I thought we were going somewhere, and now we just hit the tank. Well, reversion to the mean is if we're on a regular and steady improvement, it means that we're going to go up and we're going to go below the mean, and then we're going to go up and we're going to go below the mean again a little bit and go up. So what ends up happening is we start creating the mean is the level line, and that's the important line. But as coaches, what happens is we get too excited on the highs, and then we get too disappointed in the lows. And so what we fail to remember is that it's the mean, it's the average that's important. As long as we're getting better over the course of the year, that's what matters. And so once again, the scoreboard does not tell us where we're going. The scoreboard only tells us where we are. And I think that's one of the things that for a lot of coaches we forget, and it's easy to do, myself included. When we're in the midst of a game, the scoreboard is only telling us where we are and not the opportunity to learn. So for example, in basketball, you know, I watch a team, and it's easier as the years go on, the season goes on, but a team is shooting 40% from the field goal percentage. So the number of shots they're making, 40%. So at first quarter, they're shooting 55%. Coach is like, right on. Hey guys, we're shooting the way I know how we're shooting. Next quarter, they shoot 25%. Coach is like, what the heck? Okay, no worries, guys. We're gonna make it out. So they're still shooting above average even after that because of such a great first quarter. Third quarter, they come out and shoot a tiny little bit better, but a little closer to average. And then last quarter, they shoot a little bit below average again. They lose the game. Well, what did they shoot? They shot 40% for the game. So, but throughout the game, all the coach focused on was the scoreboard. We're up, we're down, we're coming back. Oh, we lost. And that was it. Missing all the teachable moments along the way because their emotion was so caught up in the scoreboard that they missed the point of the reversion to the mean. Hey, if your mean average is 40%, you're going to stay there. That's where you're going to end up. And the goal over the course of the season is to increase that percentage. So if that percentage is increasing, guess what's going to happen? Like Tesla, right? Hockey stick curve, right? You're going to get that hockey stick curve, and we say, well, hey, how do these great teams like March Madness and the playoffs and all this, we want to get there. That's every coach's plan and dream, is to get our team to be doing this the whole season. Well, you won't get there focusing on the scoreboard, because the scoreboard only tells you where you are, it doesn't tell you where you're going. And so, so those are just two practical ways. There's other things, again, like I said, this is layers deep. There's more studies. There's more, been reading about Mount Everest climbers lately, and how impactful the story they tell themselves and the story they believe is. Imagine embarking on something that you know you could very likely die doing. You're going to have some incredible preparation. You're going to have some very strong stories in your back pocket that you're going to need in order to equip yourself when you're on the summit climb that can often take about 15 hours to do. So again, the story we tell ourselves, the story we believe, I think it's a very impactful conversation to have, not only with yourself, family, friends, but also with these young people that we have the privilege and responsibility to lead and guide. And I believe that helping them, like Ryan, you mentioned this last time, metacognition, thinking about thinking. And that's really my goal today, is to be able to get us to think a little bit more about how we think. And so that when we approach others and we approach situations, that we don't just immediately judge. That's a lazy player, right? That player is not motivated. Really? Let's find out. Let's find out what's going on. Let's talk to them. Let's ask them some questions. What's the story that they're telling themselves? You know, what kind of mindset do they have? So that's better stop there, John. But thanks for the opportunity.
Gene, it's great. I like your passion. And again, I look forward to being able to hit rewind and stop it a few times and rewatch and learn from what you did share. I'm with you 100%. What we tell ourselves is the story we believe in. And I think Terry could attest. 15 years ago, I had a chance to coach a 15-year-old team, and Terry, good friends with Chris Helen. They both played together for the U of A Bears, and we all know the history of the U of A Bears and Claire Drake. And again, I just count it an honor to be on this conversation with everyone here. You guys have done a lot of work on the side of educating yourself, and to be able just to be a part of it and listen. But as we look back at what we tell ourselves is the story we believe, we all know we've made mistakes. I'm the first to put my hand up. Terry could tell you stories of me being kicked out of hockey games and slamming doors. And I'm sure at times those 15-year-olds coming home and saying, what is going on with Armbruster? What is he actually trying to tell them? But how can we continue to stay in the present and work to learn from others? And Ryan, I really appreciate joining the call here late. For everyone that doesn't know, Ryan every Monday has a leadership segment that he sends out called Short Shifts. Ryan, maybe you could share about it just for 30 seconds. And is there a chance you might be able to share with us just a little bit about the word honor? When we're telling this conversation, what we tell ourselves is the story we believe, and how honor links with things that we're talking about here this evening.
Yeah, thank you, John. And Gene, awesome stuff. Thank you very much. Sorry I got on late. It's funny, though. I was on a corporate call with a corporate executive group, and you guys are chuckling about, the coaching stuff. We were talking about exactly the same stuff. Isn't it crazy? It's, it's where we need to be as coaches right now around influencing, as Gene said, the thinking of the people, and certainly our thinking. Love the idea around stories. So maybe I'll combine the two, tell a quick story, and then maybe this answers what John is talking about. I early 80s, and I'm in Montreal, and we're playing in Boston the last game of the season, and we already know we're going to play Boston the first round of the playoffs. how do you guys think that's going to go, right? Like, you already got that figured out. And they came after us. It was brutal. First period, I get in a big fight. Second period, another one. Third period, by accident, I get hit in the shoulder and my stick turns and by accident hits Terry O'Reilly in the top of the head. And he looks at me, gets up, he looks at me, he says, "Wally, we got to go." And I'm hoping he means Tim Hortons or like Starbucks, right? And so we scrap and we fall. And for the first time in my life, I'm on top. And I'm gonna get a punch on the toughest guy in the NHL. And this is crazy. How's this happening? And Terry looks up at me and he says, "Ryan," he said, "my shoulder's out." So when he fell, he dislocated his shoulder for the 15th time type of thing, and he couldn't move. So I never thought anything of it. We're back obviously to play in the first round of the playoffs, and somebody hands me, a little newspaper article, and it talks about that story a little bit. And then about 2 years later, Terry O'Reilly, Jenny and I get a call from Nate Greenberg from the Boston Bruins. And he said, "Ryan, we've cleared it with the Canadiens management. You're coming to Boston Friday night." And I go, "Nate, what, the Canadiens traded me and forgot to tell me?" And he said, "No." He said, "Terry O'Reilly wants you and Jenny to come to his retirement party." And for me, honor begets honor. I think it's one of the greatest things we can, as coaches, teach in our game, is to show kids that this game is about honor, right? It's a tough game. But that story of honor is so important. And I think this idea of finding ways to honor each other, and then, I like where Gene took us. Even in the stories we tell, starting with honoring us, right? What are the great things that we bring to the table that we can do? I love this idea of honoring. So thank you, John, and thank you, Gene. Thanks, everybody, Dave and Terry. And a very quick one, short shifts we're excited about it. Been wanting to do it for a long time. One little principle, I try to tell stories, quick video, under 3 minutes. A whiteboard on the video. So, let's say like John said, we're talking about honoring. How do you take that deeper? How do you do it? A 1 to 10 part of the course. How good am I at honoring other people? Well, this last week, maybe a 6. And then what we do is we ask 3 key questions at the end, and we give you an electronic journal so that you can actually answer the questions if you choose to, and keep a journal in a little place called Short Shifts. We're delivering it every Monday morning until I pass away. So thank you, though. And other thoughts, ideas, you guys, obviously, if you want to have a look at it, it's just ryanwalter.com/short-shifts, short-shifts. But just give me a call. Just give me a call or an email, and we'll talk about it. John, I just want to fit into what you're doing, though.
All right. It's great to have you on board. And Dave, Terry, any feedback coming from you as you've listened here this past hour? Terry, I know within the business circles you're in and the conversations you're having, how did some of these topics hit you on, the story we tell ourselves, the story we believe? Would love to listen to you on your thoughts.
Yeah, sure, John. Thanks. Yeah, very much. I mean, a lot of the stuff resonated with me, especially my journey as a coach. I mean, I very much, and I think, reality is with a lot of coaches is we by definition are competitive individuals. usually, not always, but have come from a background in the sport, whatever. And so the scoreboard is something that certainly in my early days was a measure of, whether I or the team were having success. I've completely come off that, or at least I like to believe to. I still love to win. I still think that the quote I love, it's you may not win always, but the desire and want to win has got to be there. And I think that's the part that is the driver to continue to improve yourself. And so much of what I do in the corporate world, as well as in the hockey world, is paralleled. I mean, coaching my team at work and coaching my kids during the year, there are so many parallels, and there are so many things I draw from my early days of coaching and the people I was fortunate enough, my early days of playing and the people I was fortunate enough to have me coach me were things that I take to bear every day. So a lot of resonation. Gene, stuff that you said as far as, we believe what we tell ourselves. I mean, that's just a reality. I think, one of the things that you see all the time is even at my age working out. I mean, my brain tells me I'm done long before my body says that I should be done. I mean, that just happens over and over. And so mentally trying to get yourself to that place is just so key. So a lot of good stuff today for sure. Appreciate it. Thanks.
That's awesome, Terry. From those that don't know, my older brother Dave's the principal in Fort Saskatchewan, and Dave, I'd love to loop you in here too, where you're dealing with teachers with lots of experience. You're dealing with some teachers that may be fresh out of the U of A. And, what might you have to share with us too of those conversations you're having them as you understand maybe where that behavior is, or it could be even be around discipline. As leaders, discipline has to be a part of our conversations. I believe that. And in that you have experience, and then you have some with not as much experience. What might resonate with you, Dave, as you listen to the call this evening?
Yeah, thanks, John. And again, just appreciate the opportunity to listen. And each of us are in different spheres of influence. When we talk about sport, when we talk about team, really it doesn't matter if that team is on a hardwood floor on the ice or in a school building, wherever it is, we're always leading. And so again, a lot of what's been said tonight resonates with me as well. And when we talk about perception being reality, that is true. And the story we tell ourselves really, what Gene, what you're talking about, it's the crucial conversation. And it is, what story do you tell yourself before you come into a situation? And it even links back to what Ryan had talked about a few weeks back about, whether it's a past positive or a future positive. Of course, the negative side is there as well. And that's something that actually I shared with our Christian Ed board a few weeks back in the devotion that I led. Just that reminder about that mindset and that position of thinking is really influential. And one of the encouraging pieces, and I want to encourage each of us tonight with, is that we have full control over which mindset we approach life with. And that whole question, that whole story about what we're telling ourselves is up to us. And we do know that we're influenced by a variety of different things, but we can control which story we're telling ourselves. And I've had reason to do that even recently, where I went through an evaluation, and it was a very positive experience. But those days leading up to it, you can tell yourself different stories and wonder, what the potential outcome will be. But to know that that mindset is so important. And like you've said, John, we all are dealing with people at different places in their story, and some need to be championed, some need to be encouraged, some need to be reminded that where they're at currently is okay, and we'll get through things together. But to keep having those conversations, and to continue to remember that where we're grounded is important, and then that foundation that we're coming from is very important. And I also like the comment Gene had mentioned as far as that scoreboard is current but not future, and so that also is just a real key reminder about those little things that you're doing every day. I'm reading a book right now by John Maxwell, Make Today Count, and he goes through 12 different chapters of key things that you're dealing with, and really his subline or subpoint or the part of the title is, it's your daily agenda that really makes the difference. And so it's those small things that we're doing leading up to where we want to be, and just to enjoy the journey, and know that that's as important as the destination, but we still have to know where we're going. So yeah, really love tonight.
Yeah, right on, guys. It's awesome. Appreciate it, Dave. Guys, I know it's been almost a month since we've had a chance to connect on this Coach's Corner, and there was a ton that sent in tentative, and I know there's lots going on. I sure appreciate you guys making time to be a part of this evening. And, Gene, what you'd said earlier, where are we taking time, and how valuable do we think time is? And are we excited about waking up in the morning? There's a lot of things around us where it's like, wow, when are we going to find that right leader to lead our nation? Or where are we going with sport? Or where are we going to find demand? Well, yeah, these are big, big questions. But knowing that we still have these different areas to where we can have rich conversations, and the conversation doesn't have to be, well, that person might remember where I failed, or yes, Terry, how many games we won in 05, and some would say, man, oh man, that year was basically a write-off. Well, very few people knew that there was a kid last name Schaff on his team, and he lost his dad halfway through his year. And little did anyone know that we'd go to the Sutter Cup and find our power play ticking at the right time. Schaff would score on the power play, on our power play, and that's something what he'll remember for the rest of his life. Yeah, we didn't win the Sutter Cup, but Gene, as you said, how is the slow progression to where we feel like the team is peaking at the right time? And I want to say that year, Terry, you might disagree with me, or Chris Helen might disagree with me, but Marc Belanger was pretty good in net, but there were some pretty cool things that happened right at that end of the year. And how are we remembering that, and then being able to be in conversations with others to where maybe it is more about them than us? And that's something I want to learn more about and be able to communicate more with moving forward. But long story short, guys, it's 8:19, 4 minutes overtime. Dave, thanks for being here. Gene, thanks for sharing. Terry, thanks for making time to be a part of it. Ryan, thanks for sharing about short shifts. What I'd like to do is maybe put a little snippet as we send this YouTube out, to where if anybody wants to learn more, they can go to your site. Really appreciate all you guys, and let's keep putting the best foot forward, and looking forward to the next Coach's Corner.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Right on, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Gene.
Yeah.